You are listening to SFL Radio.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the SFL Playoff Primer. I am your host, Mullenax, and on the line with me is the one and only, the one that you love, the one that we all adore, the one and only Cameron Irvine. What's up, Cam?
And we all know everyone is here to hear how you do as your first hosting gig in the SFL. So, no pressure on that.
No one's here for me. I can guarantee that. No one is here for me. They're all here to hear about their teams and to hear from you. And your terrific insight, and I'm here to do the same. I want to hear what you have to say about these terrific games. But let's first talk about the end of the season. What a great season we had. You've done this multiple times now. How would you rate this season as compared to the ones that you've had in the past?
Man, I can't even. There's just no way. I don't ever remember having a season with as many good games down the stretch as we had. I mean, just this week, Queen City beat Minneapolis. Houston and Oklahoma City couldn't stop scoring. The list just goes on and on. Cleveland's just, tremendous effort and all that they did. And, it was just an incredible, absolutely incredible finish.
And this is my first season as an owner, my second as a viewer and just a lover of the SFL. And I'm just elated, even though my team didn't make the playoffs, I still it was just so much fun, and it's really taken over my life a little too much, to be honest. But
hey, me too. I think I have
know.
some sort of problem.
Yeah. Well, you have a problem. Like, you need to see someone. I just need to get a life outside of this room that I'm stuck in here. But
I can't stand when people say that. Like I don't have a life. I do have a life. Other people have lives. Other people they have wives and they have kids and they go to work and people have lives. They just choose to spend their free time with us. I don't it's like I don't know what you call it, but it's like, come on. Let's not sell ourselves short here. We have lives. We just we have happier lives because we have this.
Wait, now, you have life. I'm talking about me. I wasn't accusing you of not having life. You have too much life. Honestly, you probably need to give some of that away.
You're right. I don't know you. I don't know your story. I'll leave this.
Oh, let me rustle my chains here as I'm chained to my desk, and let's talk a little bit about the SFL playoffs. Something a little bit lighter than my pathetic life. One of the things that really shocked me, and it really speaks to the parity that's in the league, is that DC and Santa Fe, the guys that were in the championship game last year, and two teams that I really admired. I really liked a lot of the players on each team, and they're one of the reasons why I fell in love with the SFL. They're not even in the playoffs, which is amazing to me that we have new blood and exciting new matchups.
Isn't that amazing? September 29th, 2014, New York beats San Francisco in the championship game, 22-20. So a great game. The Knights pull it out with a safety. Unbelievable. Next year, neither of them are in the playoffs. Minneapolis beats Orlando in the championship game. Great game. April 19th, 2015. Next year, neither of them are in the playoffs. Orlando missed for the first time. Minneapolis went through tons of injuries, all that. And then again, for the third straight year, DC and Santa Fe in the championship. What a game. And they're not in. It's just, when for everyone out there that didn't make it or won't eventually make it to the championship game, nobody's untouchable or invincible around here. It is crazy. The parity that we've got right now, and that just speaks to the quality from top to bottom that we got around here. It's just a great place to be right now.
We talked a little bit about the impact of cornerbacks this season, and where it seemed that you, I think, in the previous podcast, which is great on Wednesday nights, You had talked maybe that it kind of was a season of great cornerback play, but I think it was also the season of great coaches that have come into the league and changed the fortune of teams, or at least made them look a lot better.
That was crazy, wasn't it? I mean, even guys like you and Doug Bose, and I could go down the line of NYC and Waikia. We saw something that I don't think that we've ever seen before, because we've had an 8-game season in the past, and in the past, at 1-4, there's such a small window for improvement that usually if you're bad at 1-4, you're just bad that year. But because we had the extra 4 games, I don't know how. I mean, you were sort of on the front lines of this. If your season would have ended without those last 4 games, you would still be scratching your head. But you're not as much anymore, because you got that extra time to study and learn. And now, I mean, you've got to feel much better heading into the off season, and I'm sure there are a lot of other people that do too.
Oh yeah, definitely. I feel like it took that long just to try and get some things figured out, and I'm sure just as I think I've got it kind of figured out, it's all going to change. And all the lineups are going to change, the players are going to change, the dynamics of the teams with the abilities and the new play callers, those are all going to change and present a great new challenge. And it's that challenge, and the fact that you get into a game, and at a certain point you let it go. There's a certain point where you got to trust the CPU. It does strange things, and the ball just does unpredictable things, just like it does in the NFL. And I think that's what's going to keep my passion. I think that's what keeps a lot of our passions, is that unpredictability, that factor.
It's the biggest jigsaw puzzle ever made, and it's not even close to being put together,
Yeah,
and it probably never will be.
yeah. That's why we're here. That's why we're talking. That's why these listeners are listening. And so let's get into it. Let's get into the playoffs, because this is the exact
Nitty
a
gritty.
really exciting time
It
for
is.
the NFL, and I think that we're going to garner a lot of new viewers to this, because it's just exciting, tight, good games with committed owners and coaches, and great game plans that have been pounded out over 12 weeks. This is the elite time for this league and these owners to step up, and their coaches and their playbooks, and for me, I think we got to start at the top. For me, it's just the biggest topic, I think, is going to be the Maulers. And they just had a terrific run. The run they lost the last game of the season, but they're going to be hosting the Baltimore Crabs in their playoff game, and this is an intriguing matchup. Me and you've talked a little bit about it. Baltimore comes in 6-6. Maulers, of course, are 11-1, and the Maulers have won both of the previous matchups. But the last one in Week 10 was only by 3 points in overtime, 37-34, and that was just 2 weeks ago. So these two teams are more competitive than maybe most might expect.
Yeah, and in that game, the Maulers had a 14-point lead at the half, and Baltimore sort of stayed with it. And what we saw out of Queen City in Week 12 is basically that the Maulers' weakness. We always like to talk about strengths and weaknesses and all. The Maulers' weakness is they can't seem to stop high octane stars, superstars. We're talking, the Parkey Choles, or the Elijah Bishops, or um, just the Richard Snowdens, who just tore up the Maulers a few weeks ago, even though DC was unable to come away with a victory. And they just seem to have a trouble containing these dynamic athletes. And if teams can just score, if they can just keep scoring, because the Maulers' offense is incredibly dynamic, they're incredibly difficult to scheme against because they do so many things well. But if you can just keep scoring and keep the game close, maybe you force an interception, maybe you get a stop here or there, they get too conservative, Bose goes out of bounds on a swing and isn't able to turn the corner. If you can just stay in it and keep scoring and not fall behind to the point where, don't fall. If you fall behind 3 scores against the Maulers, it's over. You're just not going to stop them enough times at that point. And I mean, if these teams can just keep it to a 2-score game, which Baltimore did the second time that they played, anyone's got a shot because a lot of teams have come close to topping the Maulers and just haven't been able to do it. But man, was that a stunner or what? Queen City putting up 58. Boy, Parkey Chol sure had his act back together again.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about Queen City here in just a little bit, but yeah, they for me were always kind of a favorite coming into the season, and kind of underwhelmed a little bit. Um, and yeah, it was a shocker, a little bit of a shocker to me that they were able to beat. Whenever you're able to beat an undefeated team, that's kudos to them. And boy, was it a high scoring game. And you're right about that scoring. You know, Baltimore Crabs quarterback Mike Dazzle, he had 347 yards and 4 touchdowns in that overtime loss. And I really think that he's going to be the key to this game, as Dazzle getting to those great wide receivers that Baltimore has, out that and Bishop. If he can utilize that. And correct me if I'm wrong, Cameron, but I believe that Minneapolis has bronze cornerbacks. Is that right?
Yeah, a couple of bronzes, and that's a bit of a weakness. Koma Kaleka is a gold free safety, and he's excellent. But yeah, the corners are a bit of a weak. Their linebackers are very stout. Broadway and Brock are very underrated and probably undervalued across the league because everyone's looking at Marconi and good speed and all that. But yeah, Ashley Odom, J.D. Lawson, they haven't really done a ton of stuff this year. And that's something that as long as you keep the ball away from Koma Kaleka and you throw it down the field away from take Brock and Broadway sort of out of the picture. There are holes there against the Maulers, and for being an 11-1 team, the Maulers certainly have looked beatable many times this year, which is it's just a testament to how good Rocco Marconi is under pressure because he's been amazing.
Now Baltimore comes into this matchup losing the last 3 games. Does that give you any pause at all?
Yeah, a little bit. I think everyone was stunned that they lost to NYC and that DC got eliminated, a little earlier than they expected, and they only scored 17 points in that game, and they just didn't seem to have the juice that they normally have, and Bishop had 2 catches, and I, I think they Baltimore has a problem because they have been easy to sort of scheme against. You take Bishop out of the game, you take the deep threat out, and you shut down Snyder. And Dazzo just has a couple of weapons, Inzer, Imperato, a couple of bronzes, and Outdat, but Outdat can't do it all himself. And they just I don't know. I don't know what it is, Stephen, and maybe you can pinpoint it a little better. But they just seem to be a bit one-dimensional in what they do, and I think teams, although these losses have been close losses, I think teams in recent weeks have started to figure that out a little bit.
Yeah, they're actually. I think it's actually a good matchup. If you can get if
Right.
Dazzle can get these wide receivers going, I know that they have a strong defensive secondary when it comes to safety play, but if they can attack the outsides, these bronze quarterbacks, I'm surprised. I honestly, when I looked at the lineup, the team's lineup for the Maulers, I didn't expect to see two bronze quarterbacks, and it's making me rethink my lineup a little bit. But yeah, I think that's the weakness. I think you nailed it. I think if you can protect deep against Baltimore and make Snyder be the one that has to run the ball, I think it's that there's I think there's that one, maybe there may be one weakness that Baltimore can exploit um, over the Maulers. I'm just not sure if they're going to be able to do it. I mean, if I had my choice, I'm going with the Maulers on this one. Although I can see a crack in the armor now after their first loss, and I think Baltimore is set up to hit their weak area on defense. It's just, can
Yeah.
they outscore them is the question.
Well, and it's interesting when you talk about weaknesses and a good matchup. It is a good matchup for Baltimore. Baltimore could not have asked for a better first round matchup, so to speak. They played Sioux Falls pretty close twice. They lost Queen City way earlier in the year. But in the two games against the Maulers, Bishop, 6 catches, 142 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And in their most recent meeting, he had a couple of more touchdowns and 107 yards on 6 grabs. Outdat had 12 for 122. The outsides are where Baltimore likes to play, and that's where Minneapolis has struggled. So from that perspective, it favors Baltimore. But as you said, if Minneapolis takes that away, does Baltimore have enough to get it done otherwise? That remains to be seen.
It'll be a good matchup. Let's move on to um, let's move on to my conference now, because I'm excited. I want to see this game, the Tallahassee Pride going into Houston to face the Hyenas. As you know, the Hyenas, they really started the season. They really just ran through everybody in our division,
Yeah.
and then they've struggled here as of late. And in Tallahassee, um, they're on a 4 game winning streak, whereas Houston's lost 4 of the last 5. And I really liked what I saw out of Tallahassee against Carolina. I mean, they ripped through them. So what are your thoughts about this matchup?
Well, Houston's won. They won 6 of their first 7, and they lost 4 out of their last 5. And before they played Oklahoma City, their owner actually called me. He said I'm worried, and I said why are you worried? He said, well, we played Louisville and we won, and then we played them again and we lost. We played Orlando and we won, and we played them again and we lost. We played Santa Fe and we were fortunate enough to beat them again. Um, then we only played Carolina once, only played Tallahassee once. We played Dallas, we won, and then we played them again and we lost. We played OKC and we won, and I'm worried we're going to lose again because that's our pattern. When we beat them the first time and we lost them the second time, and here we are again. They beat Tallahassee 30-27, and here they are playing Tallahassee again the second time. And could that pattern seriously continue? I mean, that is a bizarre trend that I gotta feel like Demond is just having nightmares over.
Yeah, that's you're referring to a Week 5 contest where the Pride went into Houston, just like they're doing now in the playoffs, and they lost to Houston 30-27 in a tight game, and it was really a battle of the two Titan running backs there with Black and Lane.
Yeah.
Black had 151 yards and 2 touchdowns, and Lane had 182 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. Where the difference was the quarterback play.
Yep.
Uh, um, you know, Courtney Coleman, he didn't have a great night, 19 of 31, 1 interception, 220 yards, but he had a better one than Tallahassee's quarterback, Alexander West, 21 of 32, 1 touchdown, and 4 interceptions.
Brutal.
You got to think that game's would have that the balance of the game was right there in those four turnovers.
How good is Dwayne Lane? This guy's a silver. This
know.
he's blowing this up.
He is.
I can't believe forever people have been telling me, oh well, I guess if you're gonna run the ball, you got to have a goal. I don't think so. We saw Chris Davis run for 200 last night. We saw Monday night. We saw Lane's got 250-yard games this year. That's ridiculous. He's got 1,000 yards in 4 games. I mean, the guy is he just gets it done. And I don't think Tallahassee wins this game putting it in Alexander West's hands. I think Houston's secondary is too good. They got exposed by OKC. But I think that OKC did him a favor, quite honestly, because they could have gotten exposed in the playoff game if OKC hadn't have done that. And Houston DeMond is a great coach. That team has been playing incredible defense all year long. I don't think Houston's going to have a problem forcing Alexander West into mistakes. So this is Dwayne Lane's. I wanna go as far as to say this is Dwayne Lane's legacy here. He's never been a player that's last year he was sort of in a secondary role. This year he got a boost, but they still didn't expect him to be that guy. But he is that guy, and this is his shot to put himself in SFL lore. And if Tallahassee advances, watch out, because I wouldn't want to play him right now.
Yeah, they are white hot for sure. And I want to go back to the running back matchup. In the last game, they kind of equaled each other out, pretty much, and it kind of went into the quarterback's hands. This time, I'm worried that Black's not going to equal out Lane. He hasn't been running the same.
Yeah. What's the deal with that? I mean, you saw him twice. You played him twice, right, and you shut him down pretty good. What do you think? What's going on there with Black? That has really been an odd story there.
Yeah, I think you got the week 1 explosion, right?
Set the bar ridiculously high.
It did, and that's the Louisville's only loss of the season, which is amazing when you think about it. But yeah, and people were saying in the chat room, well, you got to throw the first week out because it's really our preseason, and they count, folks. No matter what, it counted, and he looked terrific, but he just has not looked the same. And there's an old saying that if you see them do it once, they can do it again. You gotta put it on the playbook. I guess the play calling is not opening it up for him like it was, or people are just locking down on him and they're saying, hey, okay, we've seen what Black can do. Darnell Black can do. Beat me with Courtney Coleman.
Yeah. And if anyone knows that that week 1 is important, DC knows, because that's why they're sitting at home. Because they lost that game at home against the Crabs week 1. They would have won that game, and they'd be in the playoffs, and they'd be playing the Maulers.
Wow.
And that was a week 1 game, and that was the difference.
Well, there you go. Every game counts. Every game counts.
Yeah. Gotta be ready.
Be ready. Before we go and we talk about the other 2 matchups, I wanted to kind of touch on the newest playoff video from Tim Johnson.
Oh man, that video is I don't even have an adjective. That thing is awesome. I could watch that thing on replay over and over and over again. He did a great job. That was unbelievable.
Well, we've been blessed with his work all season, and I'm truly impressed every time I see one of his intros. They really do their job. They are sharp. They introduce other new people to the league, and they show the type of professionalism, the type of presentation that we want to show new viewers. And it hypes me up. It hypes me up for the game properly, and I appreciate that. So before we go on, guys, stay with us. We're going to show that video right quick, and then when we come back, we'll talk a little bit about that, and then talk about these other 2 exciting SFL games right here on the SFL Playoff Primer.
following is a special presentation of the Simulation Football League.
Hello, everyone. I'm your play-by-play commentator, Irvine. Formation handoff to Overstreet around the right-hand side. Overstreet picks him up, and there he goes! Overstreet! Touchdown! Wolfpack! Heachel got a lot of space. Beautiful block. Heachel is all by himself, and you will never catch that man. Touchdown. Formation. Marconi back to pass. Marconi throws it over the middle, and it's a touchdown, Maulers. James Cooley with the touchdown. Daz out of the end zone. One-handed catch. Oh, what a play! Chuck Imperano, touchdown, Baltimore. Back to pass. Looking for the football, and it is recovered by Orlando at the 17. Black breaks a tackle. Black with a step on. There he goes! Black! You gotta be kidding me! Touchdown, Houston! And Anderson. Anderson again, left side. You gotta be kidding! Anderson! Right on the move. West back to pass. West will go to the end zone. It is caught for a touchdown! Tallahassee Pride! Get out of here! Wow!
It's the SFL Playoffs, live on Twitch TV.
All right, well, welcome back to the SFL Playoff Primer. I'm Stephen Mullenax, your host. I am here with Mr. Cameron Irvine. Of course, you know that. And we are talking SFL Playoffs. But first, we've got to talk a little bit about that amazing video that we just saw.
Yeah, I mean, you can't say it enough, man. I mean, the what was it? We stand with Cam, something like that.
Yes.
I was super humbled by that when I saw the video for the first time. But all those elements, people don't understand. Like every time the camera moved to something different, he compiled all of those clips. I can't even imagine how many clips he has, and he put them all together in a way that flows to where it looks like it's one video, but it's not. It's 30, 40, 50 different videos, and he's just putting them all together, and it's just it really is a work of art. I don't mean to to overly hype TJ's work, but I just don't think that it can be said, and people just don't understand how difficult that stuff is.
And I think he's been building it. I mean, it's been getting better and better and better as the season. It's kind of the culmination of. I mean, it's a long video, and
Right.
And the little touches, the SFL mentions on the wall and up on the arch and the little sign. I mean, it's so good and represents the league so well. Big hand for him because he did a great job on that. I'm excited to see what he comes up with next. Speaking of next, let's go on to the next game on the docket here. We talked about the the Baltimore Crabs at the Minneapolis Maulers. We've talked about the Tallahassee Pride at the Houston Hyenas. And now we're going to go into the Orlando Intimidators, and they're going to be going into Louisville to play the Wolfpack. And boy, this is a tough matchup for the Intimidators, in my opinion. I really like the Wolfpack, and I've liked what I've seen from them all season. How can you not? They haven't lost a game since week 1.
Yeah, and a lot of people would say, they lost in week 1 because they didn't know they were that Houston was gonna come out strong power I that much, and they just didn't have a defense that was prepared for it. In fact, they had quite the opposite. They had about the worst defense you could have had for it, and they just got gashed and smoked and run out of the building. And that's the second year in a row they've lost the first game and won all the others. And that's just not the Louisville that we've seen over the last few weeks. But on the same token, like Minneapolis, Louisville has been tested. They beat Carolina by 10, Orlando by 8, Orlando by 11, Houston by 10, Carolina by 12, Santa Fe by 11. I mean, they haven't been super close like the Maulers, where the Maulers are winning like in the final minute and all that stuff. But teams have been there, to defend or to try to defend this Louisville team. But they don't do anything incredible. They just do everything way above average.
Yeah, and when I think about the other side of the ball, when I think about Orlando, the word for me that comes up is resilient, because I know that they started the season off on a lull and they came back. Now, despite that, they've lost 3 out of the last 4 games, and this is a tough matchup for them. But I know there's a little thing in the back of my head that you can't count them out. I think a lot of people did early on in the season, and they found out they were for real.
Yeah, and 2 of those 3 losses were to Louisville, one by 8, one by 11, almost identical games, where Orlando was playing with them for a half or 2.5 quarters, and then Louisville just eventually took over. And that's another huge key for Orlando in this game. They have to go into the halftime with a lead, because it seems like Louisville in the second half, especially recently, has been untouchable. They just come out in the second half and they just make phenomenal adjustments and they get things done. And for Orlando, they held Tallahassee to 23 points in that loss, but they're the only ones that have even gotten close to containing Tallahassee over the last month. So they've got the defense. They have the talent and the skills to hang with a team like Orlando, but they're going to need to do something extra. They're going to need to do something super in the first half to really put themselves in a position to ward off that Louisville attack that's going to be coming their way.
Yeah, and a key in those games is going to be the performance of Gold Star running back Zach Parker for Orlando. He had 2 big games against the Wolfpack. 124 yards, 2 touchdowns, 10 receptions in their first Week 9 matchup, and then another 132 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns in the Week 12, 38-27 defeat. But for Louisville, kind of surprising is the fact that it hasn't been Overstreet as much as it's been Kirkland. It's been getting over on the Intimidators.
Kirkland, man, I mean, this guy kind of came out of nowhere. He was signed. He was formerly with Honolulu. He was signed as a free agent. In fact, he was the last free agent to sign. In the whole league, and Louisville at the time didn't even know that he was eligible to be signed. So he was sort of scooped up, as the last piece of the puzzle for the Wolfpack. Last season, he wasn't overly ambitious as a player, but I mean, he's one of 13 receivers this year to have a 1,000-yard season. He is a tall, big, possession receiver, 12 yards a carry, 91.8 yards a game, 84 catches. I mean, this guy is the real deal.
And he's a silver. He's a silver wide
Yeah.
receiver. In the first matchup in Week 9 against Orlando, he had 12 catches for 167 yards and 3 touchdowns. Week 12 comes back with 7 receptions, 176 yards, and 2 more scores. That is amazing production out of that guy. And Overstreet, now in that final game, Overstreet had 174 yards rushing and a touchdown. But he didn't even have near that the first game. And they were still able to win and pull out both, mainly on the shoulders of Kirkland.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the scary thing about Louisville is if it's not Kirkland, it's AJ Blaylock, doing things deep down the field. If it's not, if it's not the receivers, it's Overstreet getting passed out of the backfield, getting shovel passes. They run the shovel pass better than any other team, and I don't understand it. If I was a defense, any play where my linebackers turn their back and go into coverage, I would remove immediately, because they catch you, going back into coverage to defend Kirkland and Blaylock, and they just flip it to Overstreet and get 15 yards up the middle. They run it so well, and they know when to do so, and they're just so balanced that it's hard to take away one thing that they do. So it's almost like you have to pick. What are you going to take away, because you're not going to stop everything, and how does that put you in the best position to succeed? I think is the way to beat Louisville, but it's by far easier said than done.
I'm going to make this little statement here and see what you think of it. I feel more comfortable about Louisville coming out of the Teal Conference than I do about Minneapolis coming out of the Gray.
What was that, Stephen? I'm sorry. Can you repeat that?
Sure. I said I feel more comfortable about Louisville coming out of the Teal Conference as the representative, as the champion, than I do about Minneapolis coming out.
Yeah, I think they're definitely the favorite. I think that there's the Teal Conference favorites from the beginning of the year have sort of fallen off. Orlando's had their struggles. Their ownership's been going through some personal things, and that has caused Orlando to sort of have wavered here in the last few weeks of the season. Houston's had all of their struggles. I think Tallahassee, if they can get past Houston, I think that Tallahassee has the most legitimate shot to beat Louisville. But at the same time, Louisville spanked them twice in both meetings that they played. In fact, when they went to Tallahassee, they forced 7 turnovers. That was that really ugly game, one of the worst of the season. I mean, it was just miserable for Tallahassee all night long. So with that said, the team that I would think is on the hottest path to dethrone them has shown absolutely no ability to play with Louisville at all. So I would definitely agree. The Teal Conference right now is on fire. I mean, they had 6 teams finish with at least a 500 record, and 2 of them, unfortunately, couldn't make the playoffs. But Baltimore, Queen City, Sioux Falls, anyone is a threat to the Maulers, and I wouldn't trade places with them for a minute.
Yeah, and I'm not taking anything away from the Maulers. They've had an awesome season, and until I see them get beat, I'm probably not going to pick against them. But it's just how comfortable I am with seeing every week after week after week. Louisville has just they kill you in so many ways, and all of that, and they've got 2 star defensive linemen, which is a unique setup that nobody's really followed. Do you think people will start doing that?
I don't know. I think Louisville's owner is a defensive lineman by nature. I think it's something that is unique to the Wolfpack. I don't think that I don't see the Wolfpack changing because it's sort of their identity. I don't think people are willing to sort of take that risk on a defensive lineman like that. I think that for Louisville's defense, they have there's an ability there to beat them deep. They struggle because they have just a bronze free safety, bronze strong safety. They just don't have a lot of help over the top as others do. And I think that you have to attack. Stay balanced with the running attack because you're not going to be able to just throw it all day long. Louisville's too good for that. You have to beat balance with balance. So you have to continue to run the ball, but at the same time, when you do throw it, you can't stay conservative. I think you got to take your shots. There's shots to be taken against Louisville, and the team that can find the right time to take those shots, I think will have the most success. And we've seen Orlando over the last couple of weeks take their shots, and they've been able to score points and hang around in those games.
Yeah, I was about to agree with you on that Orlando seems fit to do that. They've got two silver wide receivers in Allen and Chambers, and if Pyatt can light it up, they may have a chance, especially if Parker can keep providing those 100+ yard multi-touchdown games. Let's go into the next game. Speaking of game, and the final one that we're going to talk about tonight, which is the Queen City Corsairs, who got in actually Monday night, and they're going to be going into Sioux Falls to play the Sparrows. And wow, an impressive win by Queen City. Obviously, a 58-50 win over the undefeated Maulers. You've got to like that momentum going into Sioux Falls.
Yeah, Park Hee-Chol is the most dynamic player in this league, and Queen City did a smart thing. Last year they made the playoffs, but they were so one-dimensional, and Park Hee-Chol got so many carries that eventually they ran into a team that called them out on their one-dimensional offense and sent them home. The Dragons winning that game in the the wild card round, and so naturally, the Corsairs decided that they needed to have a passing attack, and they've done that, and they have a brilliant passing attack, and that was one of the big reasons why they beat the Maulers. But one of the real reason why they beat the Maulers is because Park Hee-Chol got back involved. 5 carries, 23 yards, and that loss to DC was pathetic. And I mean, Park Hee-Chol had to have been fuming after that game. Hee-Chol, when he rushes for over 100 yards this season, they are 4-1. And when he doesn't, they are 3-4. You've got to get this guy carries. He's just a dynamic player. 5 times this year, not including the Minneapolis game, which I don't have those numbers in front of me. 5 times this year, he's averaged over 10 yards a carry. And in those 5 games, 16 carries, 11 carries, 15 carries, 8 carries. Imagine if he had, 20+ carries, which he did one time this season against DC, 24 for 239, and Queen City won that game. And they, as long as if I was Queen City, first of all, I wouldn't touch a thing. They put up 58 points against the Maulers and beat arguably the best team in the league. I think that Hee-Chol got back involved. That's what they needed. And if Hee-Chol cannot be contained, which one of those 100-yard games was against the Sparrows, which Queen City lost in dramatic fashion back in week 2, 188 yards on 16 carries. But in the second meeting, just 23 yards on 11 carries. And that was the best defense that anybody's done on Park Hee-Chol. But if they lose containment on Hee-Chol, this could be an upset in the making because the guy is just that good.
And Sioux Falls, actually, in their previous 2 matchups, Sioux Falls have beaten Queen City, but those matchups were back in week 2 and week 6, and these are 2 very different teams now. But there's a common factor in those things. And maybe He Chol is key for Queen City, but maybe even on the opposite of that is that their quarterback Daniel Garcia doesn't lose the game for them, because in those previous two matchups, Garcia's had 8 total interceptions, 4 in each game. It's hard to win when you throw 4 interceptions.
Yeah, Queen City's been very aggressive in the passing game all season long, and that has been a weakness and why these games were so close the first time around for Sioux Falls, because Sioux Falls has had a major problem of getting burnt deep. But with that said, they were phenomenal against Cleveland Monday night in terms of limiting Noel Kreis, limiting Scott King, limiting the deep balls down the field, down the sidelines. That's been their weakness. It's also been a weakness of the Maulers. But the Sparrows appeared to correct that against the Vipers, and that has to give them a little bit more confidence that they can manage and contain Garcia in that passing game. And they've already done such a good job on Garcia. The problem is they've given up. They've taken the ball away, but they've also given up a lot in the process. And so I think it's a mixed bag. I think we're going to see points. I think we're going to see interceptions. And I think overall this game is going to look like the first two did, even though they were back in week 2 and week 6. I think these two teams still do the same things well and still struggle, with parts of their defense. And I think, in my opinion, I think it's just going to come down to which running back has his day, Heachol or Anderson. They both have the ability to just absolutely take over a game, and so who's going to do it? Because I think that everyone's going to get their yards in this game, but the running back yardage, that's not guaranteed. They've both been shut down, a time or two, and I think it comes down to them.
Yeah, and if they both have great games, then it goes back to the quarterbacks.
Right.
And I'm not sure which one you would put, which one you would put your money on, Daniel Garcia on one side and Julian Tyree on the other, because they've just been inconsistent.
Garcia.
They'll look great at one moment. They'll look great, and the next minute they're throwing interceptions.
Yeah. I mean, take your pick. I'd probably give this slight edge to Garcia because I think he has more talent around him with Studwell, great tight end. They use Howland so well in the slot, more than others. So their Queen City is a very unique team because their third and fourth options are almost more dangerous than their first and second, and their most dangerous option on the field at all times is their back. It's just very unique.
Yeah, I agree. And out of all the matchups, this one to me appears just on paper that it looks like it's going to be a juggernaut. It looks like it's going to be really close. And I can't even tell you who I would think would win this one. This one's that it could go either way. Queen City is coming off a great win, and Sioux Falls has lost the last 2 out of the last 4, but they're coming off a win as well Monday night. A little bit about Sioux Falls before we end here. They have a bronze kicker and a bronze punter, so they have made a specific investment in special teams. They've made the playoffs, so has that gamble worked for them? And do you see maybe other teams adopting a similar approach in the future?
I would say that for a team that only has 5 stars on offense and defense, they're a pretty good team. And Mulhall leads the league in punt average, 42.5. Sammy Prefontaine is the only star kicker of the 7 in the league that has not missed a field goal. Their special teams has been really good. Benny Beasley returns their kicks, so they have a kick returner. Doesn't have a kick return this year for a touchdown, so he's due. 22 average yards a return, nothing flashy there. Sioux Falls. I mean, it's an interesting gamble. It's a gamble that hasn't. I wouldn't say it's a gamble that has helped them or hurt them in any strong way. I think it's slightly helped them. I think that some teams need more firepower on offense or defense because it's a negative in their coaching. Um, Sioux Falls hasn't really seemed to have too many negatives in their coaching this year, so they've been able to win games while staying balanced. And I will say this: Sioux Falls having 4 losses, 3 points in overtime to Baltimore, 3 points to DC, 8 points to the Maulers, and 13 to the Maulers. That's a pretty good resume of losses. This team, when they lose, are in these games, and they just they're a scary team because you know they're going to come out and they're going to play you. They're not going to lie down and they're going to be in the game. And Ashley Anderson is a legit MVP candidate possibility, and I think that back to your point with the kickers and the punters, it's helped them, but I don't know if I necessarily see it as a trend, but who knows? I mean, this is just one season. A star punter could even have a better year next year. We just don't know.
Well, it'll be interesting to see if they make a difference in the playoffs. That'll be with as closely as these two teams are playing. I think it'll be a close game. It could be a kick or a punt that makes a difference. So let's not forget though that Queen City also has a bronze kicker, so that could come into play as well.
Right. Yeah. And both these teams are great on special teams. Howland returns, the kicks for Queen City. I mean, these two teams are built in a very similar way, and it's just going to come down to who executes well and who executes the best. I'm interested to know what you think the closest game of the week is going to be, because these are some 4 really good matchups. If I had to put money on it, I think that Houston Tallahassee is going to be a very, very good game.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Although, if you're asking me which one's going to be close, I think it's Queen City and Sioux Falls. I just think I like what I've seen from Queen City, especially after this last win, and I just think they match up really well. But yeah, Houston, Tallahassee, all these games have intriguing storylines, and I think they have their strengths and they have their weaknesses, and now it's in the hands of these owners and these coaches and these adjustments, and we're as viewers, if you have skin in the game or not, we're in for some great SFL action here this week and in the next coming weeks, all the way leading into the championship game on April 16th. Before we go, Cam, I do want to mention your State of the League address this week, which is Wednesday night. Can you tell us a little bit about that, and then maybe give us a time so we can be sure that we're all there?
Yep, been preparing for the state for a long time. There's going to be some announcements that you're not going to want to miss. They're important to the SFL, past, present, future, and these are sort of the issues of our time, the strengths and weaknesses of our time, and all we're trying to do is to be the best and to be remembered for something great. And we have such a great group of people, and I can't wait to thank them all and to give them their due, and to address everyone in the league, owners, coaches, players, fans. If you are an SFL fan and you're listening to this and you're hyped for the playoffs, come to the State of the League address. We want to celebrate everyone that's been a part of this, and we want you, through the playoffs, and if you're not directly involved in the league, there is a spot for you. Come in. We've just got a great group of people who just want to help you sort of create your legacy and become a part of this sim football league that we call home. So it should be a it should be a really strong night as we push forward for the playoffs in the future.
And that's this Wednesday night.
At 6 Central, yeah. Thank you for reminding me on the time.
6 p.m. Central. Go to simulationfl.com, and you can check out our website. See what the league is all about, and Simulation FL on Twitch to actually see the address Wednesday night. Is that correct?
Yeah, and we may adjust our homepage so that it's live on the homepage as well. But I haven't gotten that far yet. We we have plenty going on around here this time of year.
Well, we always do, and we appreciate you and all the work that you put into it, Cam. And I just want to remind the people out there, be sure to follow us on Facebook. Be sure to follow us on Twitter. Help support us in social media and get the word out about this great, wonderful league that we have. We want this to be a shared experience. We want more people. We want more people invested in you and your teams and invested in the league to ensure its future. And Cam does all this work. He sacrifices so much. We appreciate you, Cam. I know we tell you that all the time. You can't hear it enough, though. And he does that work to not only bring you enjoyment, bring me enjoyment, but he wants to grow this league into something special, and that takes people, and that takes viewers. So we encourage you to go out and tell a friend, tweet it out, share something on Facebook, and the playoffs is a wonderful time to do that because we're going to have some, as we've heard tonight, we're going to have some great matchups for people to watch and get hooked to the SFL. I'm Stephen Mullenax. Thank you. This has been a great first show. I want to thank Cameron Irvine. Cam, you got anything to say here in the last minute or so?
Just thank you for hosting, Stephen, and you're a gracious host. And I just can't. That championship games could be special. You can be part of the commentary crew and get your first experience SFL up close and to really to everyone. If you've ever seen an SFL game and we've run into some technical problems or we've had to go off the air or you've tried to watch or whatever, all that stuff is in the past. Come back. You won't experience much of that anymore, and just have a good time because we're really we get better every day here. We learn from all of our mistakes. Everyone does. And so we're just trying to get better every day, and you'll see that in the playoffs.
That's a great way to end it. My name is Stephen Mullenax. He's Cameron Irvine. We thank you for listening to the SFL Playoff Primer. Be sure to join us Wednesday night for the SFL address, and then Thursday night for the first game of the playoffs. See you guys then.